Welcome back to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. I'm your mortgage broker host, Taylor Atkinson.
And I am your real estate agent host, Matt Glenn. What is going on, Taylor?
You and I were just talking about some of the headlines as tourism's been kind of soft lately in the Okanagan.
Yeah, I've been hearing that it's soft, but then yesterday I go out for lunch at Earl's, like right downtown Kelowna. Like it was weekday, whatever yesterday was, Wednesday. We walk into the restaurant and we were the only ones in the restaurant. It's like probably the most prominent restaurant downtown. And then we're looking at the lake and there's like a couple of boats on the lake. Beautiful day. Like we haven't had any smoke. It's been hot this whole summer. I felt like yesterday should have been cooking downtown and it was kind of quiet. That's just like totally anecdotal, but what do you think?
Yeah, funny enough, we were also at Earl's a couple weeks ago.
We know the good spots.
Yeah, on a long weekend on the patio and no reservation, walked right in. It was like 50% capacity. So it definitely seems to be a legitimate concern.
I don't think this is a hit against Earl's. I think it's just a Kelowna in general. Like Earl's is a fantastic spot. I think, yeah, just down. Like obviously in our world, a lot of people are blaming it on the short-term rentals, Airbnb rules, right? Which I think definitely play a factor. But I think having such a gnarly summer last year really turned people off.
Yeah, so here's a Kelowna Now article.
Yeah.
They say blame it on short-term rentals, blame it on a cool wet June, blame it on a heat wave, blame it on smoke and wildfire, fragile economy, shaky consumer confidence, or a combination of all of the above, which is, it's hard to quantify. Any one of those would impact it right now. I'm sure time will tell. But yeah, it does seem a bit slower. So we've reached out to a couple people in the industry to have them on to talk about this.
The short-term rental thing, like I don't think the hotels are packed, right? Like, so I don't know if it's a short-term rental thing. Like obviously if you have a family, you're just not going to even look at a hotel, maybe if there's like 10 of you. So I don't know, maybe they just don't come at all because of that.
Well, I think that's kind of part of it, right? If hotels are more expensive and they can't accommodate as many people, you are going to see less people moving around, but probably economically as well. It's not a great time.
Yeah, I think the interest rates have really taken a hit, not only of the housing, but also of people's spending money, which is what they come to Kelowna for this time of year.
Well, and the cost of service right now too, right? So
yeah,
look out for a podcast, hopefully in the near future, that we bring someone on to talk about that. Relevant to that topic, our guest today, Jamie Squires from Fifth Avenue Marketing. They're based out of Vancouver, but they do a lot of pre-construction projects throughout BC. They're backing Sokana out of Penticton right now is one of the projects she was really talking about.
Talk a lot about that on this episode.
Yeah, so Penticton seems to be more of an advocate for short-term rentals and, supporting their local businesses that way. So yeah, if anyone from Penticton wants to come on and talk shop, that'd be pretty cool as well.
Man, so also, do you hear in the news, the West Bank First Nation is putting a hold on new short-term rental things too?
Really? No, I did not. This is breaking news.
Well, it's not really breaking news. It's been the last 2 days, but they basically paused new licenses. So they had the two places that allow them, Verona Beach and
the Cove,
maybe the Cove, but those two are allowed to have short-term rentals. But they said they're pausing them for now because they're just getting an influx of so many people wanting to do that, which makes sense given the state of everywhere else in the area, so makes sense that they're doing that. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I know that it's been talked about.
Yeah, let's see how the fall and winter shakes out. Maybe there'll be some changes. We'll have to adapt some plans to make sure everyone has a good summer next year. Selfishly, it's been kind of nice cruising
I've
around.
been hearing that from locals. Everyone's like, man, this is kind of nice. Go to the beach or spots, you can walk it around. Traffic isn't wild. So I have been hearing that from locals, which is super funny.
But then if those locals own a business, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah. And this episode, like every other episode, is sponsored by Century 21 Assurance Realty, best brokerage in the Okanagan. My brokerage, where I've always been at, where I'll always be at. If you're an agent looking to make a change or a buyer or seller looking for an agent, give Century 21 a call. Talk to Max, talk to Dean, talk to me. Love to hear from you. Enjoy the episode.
Right on. Okay, welcome to the show, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we like to kind of start our show, just you connecting with our listener. What's your perfect Friday look like in terms of what do you do at work? What's productive for you? What gives you energy? And then leading into the weekend, what do you do for fun?
Okay, well, I actually usually wake up to my cats asking for breakfast. One's laying on my chest, staring me in the face. And the other one's on my night table, actually knocking anything I might have on there off just to make noise and then looking at me after she knocks anything off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Basically, from there, I get up, get ready for the day, come down, see the dogs, take them for a walk, get my energy, creative juices flowing, go from there. And then I head into the office or into my home office because we have a hybrid work. Everything's ready to go. I do try not to have meetings on Friday. And if it is necessary to have meetings on Fridays, I like to try to have them all scheduled before lunch.
yeah.
Again, going into the weekend, having time to think, catch up on any tasks. You need that thinking time to really be creative when you're coming into marketing and sales. So that's the time to do it.
Nice. So what is the company that you're with?
So I'm with Fifth Avenue Real Estate Marketing. I am the president and managing broker, as well as Epic Marketing.
Nice. Yeah, we had Shane Stiles on from Epic previously a couple of years ago, and we had Scott Brown on. I think it was episode 45. So yeah, we've spoken to a couple people working with you guys. So what's exciting? What do you got for news for us? I mean, you guys are basically like dominating the pre-sale market, right? You help with projects throughout BC, a lot kind of lower mainland and the Okanagan. Yeah, what's exciting for you right now?
So for us, exciting, we have a project that we're actually selling the second phase of called Sokana in Penticton. Penticton is one of the largest cities for the South Okanagan, which gets, extremely warm and dry in the summer. However, the great news there is it is cold in the winter, but there's barely any snow on the roads in town, at least.
Yeah.
They're very close, say a 20-minute drive or less, up to Apex Mountain, where they get the snow that you need when you want to go snowboarding or skiing in the winter. And we're just really pumped about Sokana. It's the first building in about 25 years in Penticton to actually incorporate a pool, which when you have summers where your average temperature is well over 40 degrees Celsius, you're going to need and want to jump into a pool if you're not living right on one of the two lakes. Yes.
That is actually an amazing stat there.
Mm-hmm.
No buildings have had a pool in the part of the amenities in over 25 years in Penticton. That's kind of
Yeah,
funny. And so kind of too is right at the start of the channel, kind of where the city beach is, right at the kind of the entrance to Penticton. Great
exactly.
location.
You can walk right to Okanagan Lake and all the restaurants, go in for a drink or a dinner out, walk home. If you walk the other direction, you're walkable to shops, coffee shops, services, banks, everything you need that way, as well as a golf course. Couldn't be any better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When's the project supposed to be finished? I mean, I should get a unit there. I want to say like 2026.
There's two phases. So the first phase that's sold out, I believe, is estimated for 2026. And the second phase we're estimating right now is 2028.
And is there only two phases on Sokana?
Correct. So phase two is the final phase that we're just starting to sell now. Yeah. It also has the homes that face the river or the channel on
Yeah.
Riverside Drive there. Yeah.
Obviously, this is a bit of a dynamic question, but this was originally proposed to allow short-term rentals. City of Penticton has been great at supporting that, and I don't want to say fighting it provincially, but have been supporting autonomy on usage for property. Do you have any updates for that? Like, obviously, I'm optimistic to be like, hey, it's another 2 years until this closes. Maybe something changes. As of now, what does that look like?
So cities, especially cities like Penticton itself, should be battling this. There are some that are oddly enough opting in, which could be detrimental to their workforce and their businesses of the town, the local businesses. These are tourist towns in the summer, a lot of them, especially Penticton. So a lot of the businesses actually rely on the summer tourist to give them that cash capital to live on and have the business run for the rest of the year when it's a bit slower. That said, you can also never get a hotel in the summer. My husband actually grew up in Penticton and my family lives in Penticton. So we're fairly local without being actually local ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're very used to this. And you go up there and it's booming. It's very busy in the summer. It's the place to be. It's got all of the festivals. It's got the fireworks, the strongman. It's got everything, or Iron Man. And it's all busy. And then you come into the fall and the winter and it slows down. You get a tiny little pickup at Christmas, and that's people coming to visit family for Christmas usually. And then that's it. So all of those restaurants and businesses we just talked about on the beach that you can walk to from Sokana actually rely on people coming to those hotels that you are always fully booked and can never get in. Like if you wanted to go to Penticton right now, good luck getting a room if you went to go online and book one today.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, it's going to be at an exorbitant rate. In fact, you can't even get a campsite if you want one. They're probably all booked for the summer by the end of January, if not last year. So by banning the Airbnb in a town like that, all you're actually doing is hurting the local people and their ability to have the customers required to stay in business.
Yeah. Like, are you guys selling? Well, I guess you kind of have to sell phase two as like a non-approved Airbnb. Like the usage has to be what's currently
Yeah.
provided in provincial legislation.
Exactly. In the
Okay.
provincial legislation, there are some loopholes. So we've actually had some customers come in recently because I've actually been to the site and helped working it for a bit with our sales team there over the last month or so. And we've actually had customers come in and they're more of a downsizer or a retiree. And they're like, well, if I go to Phoenix or Palm Springs for 3 or 6 months in the winter, or if I visit my daughter in Ontario for 2 months, could I Airbnb it? And with the new legislation, you could, because it's technically still your primary residence. So you can Airbnb your primary residence. So if you're looking at a place for Sokana and you're one of these people that are able to be, here and there at different times of the year, and it's still your primary residence when you're home and on your tax returns, essentially, then you can still Airbnb it. And Sokana would be the perfect place to allow that because every home has a storage locker, but there's the ability to buy the extra storage lockers and bike lockers, right? So you could put your private stuff down there, Airbnb it for the weeks you're away, and then come back and make money while you're on vacation.
Right. That's a good point. Cause we're kind of stuck in the Kelowna mindset right now where the municipalities come out even more restrictive than the province, stating that, they're not going to provide any new business licenses to operate. So at least with the city of Penticton, you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Are there other ways, I know you're kind of talking about fractional ownership as well in these type of properties. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So there's other ways if you're not, say, a retiree or an empty nester that can take a few months off a year and Airbnb your own residence. Another way to get in if you're looking for a place to have, say, as a summer or a winter home, spend the Christmas there or go up there for the summer is to look at buying with family or friends. You're not all going to be there at the same time unless you plan to be. Of course, you can always do that. But if you all bought a home together there and used it on different weeks of the year, then your payments would still be low. Not as low as if you Airbnb'd it and you're not making the money, but you're sharing the cost of the home, but you can still access and use it whenever you want. The issue with renting it out is under the Residential Tenancy Act, RTA for British Columbia, is you can do a lease, but if they don't leave, it just automatically goes to month, and then you basically can never get them out. It would take you like a year with a bailiff to hopefully maybe get them out, even if they weren't paying the rent. That's a huge risk to take, and that's why people prefer the Airbnb option.
Yeah.
That was always the pushback with people like renting to students for the year and then renting for Airbnb for the summer. Is that what happens when the student just doesn't leave at the end of the year?
It's a huge legal hassle because
Yeah.
in British Columbia, the landlord or the property owner doesn't actually have any of the rights when they rent it out anymore. And
Yeah.
our NDP government has made that even more cumbersome. They're changing rules or making it harder even to get them out for your own family or your own use now. It's crazy. I actually think it's very scary when people want to take away individual property rights. And it's even scarier if the general population thinks it's a good idea. There are a lot of historical references I could make, but won't on that. But some are from Russia. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. We've kind of talked a lot on both sides. We've gone political on the show. We've brought on politics. It's been a fun conversation. Yeah. Okay. Well, can you walk us through the pre-sale process? Like just start to finish, I guess, from a customer point of view. Yeah. How it looks.
Perfect. Yeah. As a customer or purchaser of a home in pre-sales, and we can use Sokana as an example because they're all fairly similar. But basically, you can either come in during the open hours or make an appointment outside those hours with a salesperson. We recommend you bring your realtor or your representative with you. If you can't, that's fine too. Just let our salespeople know who they are if you have one so that we can make a note of it and get in touch with them should the buyer be interested. From there, they can come in and see we have what's called a vignette set up in our show home so they can actually see the finishing details of what their kitchen's going to look like of one of the color schemes, in addition to 2 color boards to show what the alternate scheme looks like and renderings. So people can actually touch the cabinets, can see the sink, can see the appliances that they're going to get with their home in that presentation center, which is located behind phase 1 now. It used to be right on site, but we had to move it in order to build phase 1.
That's a good reason.
Yeah. So that's really good. But it's very close. You can actually see the crane from our presentation center and walk around and get a good feel of the neighborhood if you're in town. If you're not in town and had interest, just check out the website online for Sokana in Penticton and register that way. And then the sales team would be in touch with you with more information. We have all the floor plans, brochures, features, everything that you'd want to know about. And, depending on what type of home you're interested in, we can share that with you. Our strata fees are pretty good considering we do have a pool. They are a little bit higher than normal for low rise, which is around 52 cents a square foot. But that's because we're making sure we're working with a proper property manager and actually budgeting properly for the pool, because they can be a little expensive if not. So your general low rise, just so you know, strata fees for low rises without water features like pools and stuff generally fall in between 42 to 45 cents a square foot. So when you add the pool, it's bringing it up to about 52 cents a square foot. When you're in the 50 cent a square foot range, if you don't have a pool, you're usually in a high-rise concrete tower, which has a lot more hallways and areas that need maintenance. And that's why they would be higher like that. Any developments that are over 50 cents a square foot and low rise are probably too high, and something's probably wrong with the budget.
Interesting. Yeah, because 50 cents a square foot doesn't seem too bad. That seems like a reasonable number.
If you're in a concrete tower or have a pool, yes.
Yeah.
You could have told Matt $10 a square foot. That's a good deal. I like it.
Yeah, I'll take two.
I've been proofreading disclosure statements and budgets for disclosures for a very long time now.
Yeah.
A couple decades. I'm pretty good at spotting those things. So.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
What's the deposit structure for you guys? And do you have any current incentives?
We sure do. So typically it's 15% deposit. However, we do have a promotion going on where we can do 10% deposit. We can take 5% now, and we can actually stagger the last 5% out over 6 months or so if you need to help with that.
Nice.
Okay, so phase 1 is sold out, and then how's phase 2 been rolled out? How's it going so far?
We launched phase 2 late last summer, I think in August. We quietly launched it following phase 1 because we had some pent up demand when phase 1 sold out.
Yep.
And then we just kind of took it off the market because we wanted to have homes to release this year. So we've really started pushing that campaign as of, I would say, just this June, and started the sales. We had UDI come visit. We did a smaller realtor event just to showcase the homes in phase 2 and the new offering there. Yeah, so it's going good. And I think we've sold, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but somewhere between 40 and 50 homes are sold. Just over 100 homes in phase 2. So we're probably close to in and around 50% sold.
Nice.
And then what other projects you guys got going on right now?
We do have a few homes remaining at our Zara at Lakestone project up in Lake Country, just outside Kelowna.
Yeah.
So that one's a very good opportunity. I believe I think there's only 2, maybe 3 homes remaining there, but it's well under its way in terms of construction. And I believe the estimated completion is for early to mid next year. So if you needed something to move into, some excellent lake and or mountain views. Again, this one also has a pool and some awesome amenities for the people, especially because you're just outside of town to really enjoy those. So worth looking at.
This might be a tough question for you, but I'm curious. What is the potential value that a pool adds in terms of the resale? Like if you were just to sell, say, a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot unit at Sokana with or without a pool, what's the appreciation to the unit? Do you guys know?
It's going to have a higher appreciation just because of the lack of pools. So let me put it this way. It's kind of a double-edged sword when we talk about pools. So when you're in somewhere like the Okanagan where it gets nice and hot, people like to go and hang out there in the summer. Those are the places you really want those, what we call resort-inspired amenities like a pool. If you were down in the lower mainland, I would say you don't need a pool and they can go to the rec center because it really never barely gets that hot here. There's really no benefit. It's just an extra cost. When the rec center, you can probably walk to 3 of them, depending on where you're living, right? Where in the Okanagan, you don't have that. There's the lake. Actually, Penticton has 2 lakes. That said, and it has the channel, they can always be very busy. Some people prefer a pool over a natural swimming area. Some people like both. Some people want the convenience of, I just got home from work and it's really hot and it's 46 degrees out today and I'm going to go take a dip in the pool where I can cool off and get clean and then make dinner or something like that. Or maybe they want to wake up in the morning and go for a quick swim before they start their day just to feel a little bit more refreshed. I actually couldn't imagine living in Penticton or anywhere like that without a pool. It's like asking me to move to Arizona and not have a pool. Like, who would do that? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking there must be like a profit margin built in because obviously, as you guys work with the developer, you're not going to recommend installing a pool if there's not money to be made from the developer side as well, right? So yeah, I was just curious if there was something quantifiable there. But yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, I like the amenities, so it's a good idea to have. Okay, any other projects like in the Lower Mainland?
Yeah, we actually have quite a few going on all over the place, depending on what you're interested in. So we have a larger scale development in Abbotsford called High Street Village. It's about 150-ish townhomes and 9 low-rise condo buildings. So that one is going very well. We're actually working on selling one more townhome and then probably closing for the rest of the summer and or the year, because we don't actually have any inventory available to sell with a completion within 5 years. We've sold it all out. And now we need to build it and catch up to sales. It's a little bit harder when your completion is like 2030, 2032, right? To sell today. So we need to wait a year or two and then we'll go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe talking about disclosure statements as well. What kind of happens if a client buys a pre-sale expected to close in 2 years? It gets pushed out 6 months, another 6 months. Generally, like you said, you review a lot of disclosures. Generally, what are the terms and conditions that, if the developer is not complete by a certain date, then the contract's null and void. But what do you see as kind of the standard policy?
So most developers today just show you the outside date. We used to regularly show you what's called an estimated inside date in bold, that you won't rely on it, but purchasers always relied on it and got angry when we didn't make it. So we just took it away and just said, this is the outside date that you can be done on or before that, and left it at that. Because even in bold, they're still relying on something that we're telling them not to rely on, right? So just take it away. Just get rid of it.
Yep.
It's not needed. It's just creating angst.
You just had to answer a few too many angry emails.
Exactly. In the end, you have to read your disclosure statement for whatever property you're buying at, and really read, as well as your contract of purchase and sale. So in pre-sales, the only thing you're really allowed to rely on, you actually sign a clause in your offer on your contract saying this, that you're only going to rely on what's in that contract and the disclosure statement. That's it. You're not relying on anything you saw on the brochure. You're not relying on any renderings. You're not relying on any conversations. So what you want to know is really know what's in that disclosure statement, which is why you actually get the extra 7-day right of rescission in pre-sales, and have for many years now, decade or more, to make sure you have a full week to really read it and understand it. Go to a lawyer or your realtor and give you that 7 days to really understand it. That said, most have a caveat where you can extend the outside date. Some will say they can extend it up to X number of days. Some will say they can extend it X number of times by Y number of days. So you really have to read that, because as long as the developer sends an amendment to the disclosure statement extending the outside date, you've already agreed to allow them to do that up front in your offer to them.
Right.
So if you have an outside date, for example, and this isn't Sokana, this is just from memory because I read so many, but say your outside date is July 31st, 2025. But there's a caveat in there that the developer can extend it up to 2 times, up to a maximum of 180 days each for each extension. 180 days is 6 months. That's a year, because they can do it twice. If you haven't read that, you need to understand that it could be 2025, but it could also be 2026, as long as they send a notice or an amendment to this disclosure statement to you extending that date.
Is this happening at all? Or for me, I feel like the developer's incentive would be to finish on time or earlier, especially in this market when interest rates are so high and they're holding this product.
Yeah, and they always try. But in my 21 years, I've had a whole whopping 2 projects complete early ever or on time. There's too much outside of their control. You can't control when the city's going to come and do the inspection for the occupancy permit, or the fire department, which is also involved in that once you're ready. Certain things get delayed. Maybe your countertops are delayed. Maybe there's a strike at the port, so you can't get your countertops for 6 months later than you thought. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these things. Something's discontinued, so you've got to find a new tile or range stove or appliance, right? And replace them. And you need 100 of them.
It actually seems like they get delayed all the time for
They do.
a really long duration. So begs the question, why would you not pick a date that's more realistic?
They pick the dates that are realistic. So it usually takes about 2 years to build a low rise from start to finish, from when you actually start excavating. But how pre-construction works with the bank loans and everything is, most developers, the banks require a certain amount to be pre-sold and what they call de-risking the project before they'll fund the first construction draw to allow you to even start to dig the hole. So most developers, the banks right now, when I first started in this industry, they needed maybe 30% sold. Today, it's 75 to 80% for every client. Even the big guys.
To start the project?
So it's got to be 75 to 80% pre-sold, or the bank is not going to fund the money. All of these pre-sales, everyone sees going up and think, oh, I'll get one when it's done. No, you're not. Because it was 75 to 80% sold before they dug the hole. It took them another year or 2 or 3 to build it. But they'll sold that last 25% in that time.
Okay, because Taylor and I have griped on the show quite a few times about the new flipping tax and about how you can buy the pre-sales, like the assignments and all that. Like, have you seen that effect?
Yep.
Because our point is like the people that buy the assignments are basically funding the project, the investors. So to say that they're not allowed to make any money or they get poo-pooed if they do doesn't make any sense. It's like asking a bank to lend a mortgage with no interest, right? It doesn't make any sense. So does that affected your business so far or your sales?
A little bit. It affected the entire industry when it was first announced.
Yeah.
There were other projects, none of ours, that had launched.
Yeah.
And they started contract writing. And this was announced during that 7-day right of rescission. And so they had some of the biggest rescission rates ever seen because of the government announcing that. Well, they still had the 7 days to rescind after contract writing. That said, we now have more information because it doesn't actually come into effect till next year. They're not going to give you the full regulations and rules that go with it until the end of this year. What they have released is a little bit more information. So in resale, you have to own the property for at least 2 years for that new anti-flipping tax to go down to zero. It's 20%. Just so you're aware, they said it will be affecting assignments. However, I have new information. It's not completely detailed to the exact day of when the clock will start, but to me, it's close enough because it will be within a week. But basically, you have to have owned the contract for 2 years. Because we need to get to 80% pre-sale, I might have been selling for 6 months before I made the pre-sale requirement to start construction. It's still going to take me 2 years to build it. So you've had that contract for 2.5 years. You've already got 0% on that tax.
Nice.
So that's the way to avoid it, and or ask for a later completion date, or make sure that building's late so you don't have to pay the tax. And now all of a sudden, buildings being late are a great thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for an investor, I guess. For a homeowner that wants to move in, being delayed is not the best, but
that's the harder challenge. So our company actually does construction updates. We usually do them every quarter, usually once a project's sold out, because you can't come in and ask questions if the sales center is closed. So we actually update all of the buyers, usually every quarter on all of our sites, on where we're at in construction and depending on the project, which phase and whatnot, and what our estimated range is today. And so every 3 months that's getting updated so they can kind of stay on top of that, right? Or still on schedule for this date, or it looks like we're now going to be in this range, so that they're getting that ahead of time. And it's not like all of a sudden we go dark and you don't hear anything and you have to close. That's not what we're doing here. We are trying to create a great experience and have happy homeowners move into their homes, albeit there are a lot of things outside of the developer's control, which is why you have dates written that way.
yeah. Okay, well, we got to get wrapping this up. So do you mind if we just fire some wrap-up questions for you?
Sure.
I hope I know the answer to this one, but if you could buy one property in the Okanagan in the next 12 months, what would it be?
Well, it would definitely be Sokana because I'm going to get the warmth and dryness of the South Okanagan. As I said earlier, not a lot of snow on the roads in the winter, but lots up at Apex where we want it to be. We've got a pool, which I said I think is mandatory in a very warm region like this. I mean, you had a heat warning last week. What were you, 47 degrees on average last week? That's crazy. You'd literally be frying out on your deck if you had one. I also recently took up golfing myself personally. So I love the fact that I could literally walk, or maybe even if I talked to the Penticton city and got some bylaws similar to Palm Springs, I could buy a golf cart and just cart myself there.
Now you're talking.
Right? Have you seen that? You go down there, they have like golf cart lanes instead of biking. Pretty awesome.
That would help sell some units for you, for
That
sure.
would definitely help sell some units, yeah.
Yeah. And then I could end my day with a nice cool stroll by the lake, or I'd have a dinner and a drink on the boardwalk, walk home. Like, it's got everything I need. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I could live there all year if I wanted to. Yeah.
It's a beauty spot. There's no doubt about it. If you could give your 20-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
Buy a property and do it before I get a car or try to have a wedding or anything else, because it always pays off in the long run, and none of those other things ever do.
The wedding doesn't.
The wedding.
I'm going to be honest, my husband and I eloped and we bought a house, and we're better off than most of our colleagues that didn't do that at the same age. So it's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a Kelowna real estate podcast. It's not the wedding podcast. So that's fair to say. If you're in love, buy a house.
Yeah, because you can live and make a family in it. What are you going to do with a wedding? Look at videos that you don't have a player for anymore because the technology's changed?
Do a lot of gossiping after. That's usually pretty fun.
Yeah.
What is your favorite charity, or how do you give back?
Well, we give back in many ways. I would say my favorite is probably Options or BC Children's Hospital. I love giving back to kids at Fifth Avenue. And personally, I agree with this, which is probably why I've been with the company over 21 years. But one of our values is bringing people home. And in doing that, it's not just through selling homes to people, it's like through donating to places like Options. So my colleague and I actually raised $25,000 each a couple of years ago for Options BC. That's $50,000 that we alone raised towards them to do a new build in Surrey. And it shelters women and children fleeing violent households. It's a place for immigrants to go and get an education when they come here, a recovery place. It's just an awesome way to make people feel safe and get better. We actually helped Options one more time the following year and did fundraising for their children's fund, where the money was going to help keep kids out of gangs across the province. So Options BC services our whole province. They actually run the youth depression line. So like youth and suicide, that helpline, they run that for the whole province. They run a lot of different programs that are really important for people and making sure that everyone has access to shelter and what they need in life to carry on and be productive.
Cool.
Sounds nice. All right. How can Taylor or I or our listener help you?
You can spread the word about Sokana. Again, only place with a pool. We think it's the Okanagan's best new development out there right now and the place to be. We will probably be closing for sales. I'm not sure when, but we are going to shut down towards the fall, most likely. And that's just because it's more of a summer market, and then open up again should there be any homes left next summer. But we'll see how that goes. But now's your opportunity to get in. You know, as they say, buy low, sell high. It's not going to get any lower.
Yeah.
The price is going to skyrocket as soon as you get that golf cart bylaw changed for us. So
I'm on it.
okay, well, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time, and yeah, look forward to seeing that project complete.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.